please.
All right, so most welcome everyone to this second lunch date in hopefully what's becoming a long chain of lunch dates. So we do this once per month, and this lunch date's theme is data and AI strategy and practice, a path to becoming an AI-driven organization. So the whole purpose of lunch dates is really to share best practices, I suppose our experience, what to do and what not to do. And at the end of the day, we hope to inspire you, obviously, on your data-driven journey. So I'm managing GetInData in the Nordics, business development manager, and I suppose we should say and clarify the brands here. GetInData is a specialist consultancy firm in data and AI, and we're one of the parts spearheading the data and AI initiatives in the Xebia group. Xebia is a much bigger group, an international consultancy firm with 6,000 people, having services in complementary services lines like cloud services, low code, but also data strategy services and AI and Gen AI. And Eva, who will introduce herself in a minute, is actually representing Xebia and that particular group of Xebia. So again, most welcome. We hope this will be a highly inspirational session, and you will get some hints at the end if you're interested and want to continue the discussion with us, how you can do that. I probably should say that even though it's a webinar, let's try to keep it interactive. So ask questions along the way. We highly encourage you to do that. And with that, I actually think I will hand over to the main attractions of today, which is not me. It's absolutely not me, in fact, but it's Piotr and it's Eva. So with that, I hand over to you. And yeah, let's kick it off.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy. Okay, so we will say a few words about ourselves in a second, but before we would like to do a quick warm-up. So in a second, I will show you 3 companies, and I would like you to think about what these 3 companies have in common. And you can put your answers in the chat. So the first company is IBM, which is a well-known technology company from United States. Another company is Klarna, which is a Swedish fintech. And third company is also a well-recognized brand from Sweden. It's Spotify. So let's give it a second. If you have any idea of what they might have in common, please give your answer in the chat.
I love the answer that is coming in. All clients of GetInData, question mark.
Actually, I think we should write it down, Claudia, for the future, because that's actually a nice idea. Okay, so without further ado, probably most of us recognize these companies as highly successful technology companies. But what you might know is that quite recently, all of these 3 companies had to make quite dramatic decisions. So each of these companies recently decided to either let some of their employees go or to freeze hiring for the future. And it's quite, puzzling what was the reason behind making such dramatic moves. And it turns out that there are 2 reasons for that. The first one is something that we can see across the board in 2023. It's actually the economic pain that we see among other different industries, different countries, and basically everywhere. The economy nowadays is a little bit more difficult, challenging than it was in the recent years. So lots of companies are looking for extra efficiency. They struggle with productivity a little bit, even those big companies. And the second reason is actually the changes, the innovations that we see in the field of AI. So 2 of these 3 companies have actually publicly stated that they planned to hire some people to do some of the tasks, but because of the changes in Gen AI and other technologies, this work will no longer be needed, because to gain extra efficiency, they plan to use artificial intelligence to fill in these jobs, and they will not hire new stuff. So we see that we have a special times and they require special actions. And the companies who need to seek for this productivity boost are looking at with the use of data and AI. And we also believe that this is the right path, but it's not always very easy. As Eva will show you in a second, actually lots of data projects, they fail to succeed, they fail to deliver the expected value. So that's why we believe in order to do it smartly, you need to either have data strategy and update your data strategy to the changes that we see in the world. So a few words about ourselves. So Jimmy did a light introduction. So in both our companies, we focus on delivering hundreds of data projects. Myself, my name is Piotr Menclewicz, and I know that this name sounds like someone invented it to make it hard to say. So you can just call me Peter. And I've been working with data for more than a decade now in different roles, from data analytics through data science, analytics engineering, and so on, but always at the intersection of business and technical teams, making sure that they understand each other, making sure that whatever business value is expected will be delivered with our data products. And when I'm not doing that, I'm usually pretty busy with my two kids who are making sure that I do not have too much free time. But when I find some, I'm also quite passionate about education and technology and the impact of technology that it can make on the education field. And also I'm happy to have Eva Bosma here, who is actually the greatest person you could imagine to have in this webinar, because she's not only working on data strategy projects on a daily basis, but she's also up to the speed with all of the latest trends in AI as a Gen AI practice lead. So Eva, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the introduction. Happy to be here. My name is indeed Eva Bosma. I worked for Xebia in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. Started as a data strategist, so I've done really amazing data strategy projects here, which I will elaborate on later. But recently also appointed as the global practice lead for generative AI, which is of course a trend I think that we can no longer ignore happening around us. Which also opens a lot of doors for new AI or data projects and assignments. So yeah, we see this trend, we hop on it, and we hope in this session to also inspire you to work with it or get started with it, or at least learn something from this session. So I'm happy to be here, and looking forward to sharing what we've been doing.
Yeah, thank you, Eva. Okay, so 4 big ideas that we would like to discuss with you today. So what are the current trends and why you can no longer ignore them? What's a data strategy? What are the benefits of having data strategy? How do you develop a data strategy? Some lessons learned from the field. So Eva will share some actual data strategy projects, what was done there and what were the outcomes. And finally, we would like to help you to make the first step in building or refining your data strategy. So let's start with the trends. And I know, Eva, that you have some thoughts that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, happy to do so. As said in the beginning during my introduction, I think we can no longer ignore that generative AI has really changed how we interact with data and AI. OpenAI recently celebrated the first birthday, and I think in the past year we've seen so many changes happening, also within our own organization. And so looking at what we see within GetInData and within Xebia, is that we see how generative AI changed the way how software is made. And just a few examples that I put on the slides are that hopefully known ChatGPT, when released, had in no time 100 million users, which is a huge mainstream success. It made AI accessible to everyone. I mean, even my parents, who are non-teggies at all, they told me about generative AI and what it can and cannot do. So we saw this huge increase of people wanting to do something with AI. And with this success, we also noticed that other tools, for example, like Stack Overflow, saw a huge decline in their user base, which was quite tragic because it's the source of one of the building blocks for the GPT models. And I think that this pattern shows that good companies like GitHub Copilot, for example, they were quickly adopting to this new era that we entered. We saw new competitors emerging. And I think it really shows that you need to be aware of this trend and hop on this train to avoid being lacking behind in the future, because this is just about software, like what we notice ourselves. But I truly believe that other industries will follow, and that in just a few years' time, AI will play a huge role in all the different industries that people are active in. And I think, Piotr, you have some really good graphs that show that this trend potentially will do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because as we discussed this briefly before this webinar, we love data. So whenever there is some kind of like new technology, we are all excited by, for example, your family, your neighbors have no clue about it. So it's only you, maybe around you, who is excited that much. But I think first time that I recognize it's not the case, because if you look even at how often people search for the AI keyword in Google, you will see that there was some interest over the last like 20 years, and it was increasing in the last 5 to 8 years, but that was quite steady growth. For a reference, I will show you this point, which is October 2022. So it's a moment just before ChatGPT was released, and let's see what happened in the last year. So as you can see, like that's crazy, because what happened in the last 12 or 13 months right now is actually a huge spike of interest in AI. It's much bigger than in the whole period that Google noticed before. And there are reasons for that, of course. So just like you Eva mentioned, the AI is right now much more democratized. So for example, today you can start using some APIs, or you can start using some tools that are using under the hood state-of-the-art AI models, and you do not need to worry about training them, about collecting the data, and so on. And also another interesting thing that actually I'm not sure, basically probably nobody expected that, but there was a study done by McKinsey when they showed that before this revolution, experts predicted that we will not be able to deliver some use cases with AI, with computers, for the next 40 years. And these were mostly use cases related to, for example, understanding text, creativity, and everything around. And after Gen AI boom, the same experts agree that actually right away, right now, we are already prepared to deliver some of these use cases. So that gives us like 40 years speed up in the technology boost and in use cases that we are able to deliver. And what's also interesting, like it's always interesting to look at some interesting changes, but of course, nothing happens unless you act upon it. So it was also interesting for us to see how executives reacted to this change. And here you can see a poll that was made just a couple of months after ChatGPT was released. So it's May of 2023. And when you look at the actual actions, you see that 70% of the companies already in May did some experiments with Gen AI models. 45%, so almost half of them, decided to adjust their data strategy by increasing funding for AI. And almost 1 in 5 companies actually started doing something, either as a POC or some production ready solution. And I think,
this number will increase. Last week, I was at the AI Summit in New York, and there was also this guy, he was presenting, and he said, especially within generative AI, 2023 has really been the year wherein we do proof of concepts, potentially a proof of value, maybe even a prototype. But 2024 will actually be the year wherein we will push things to production and actually focus on realizing that business value. And we have more clarity now on what the AI EU Act will do. We have more clarity on how these models have been developed. There's more transparency. I honestly believe that this will boom even further in the next year or the upcoming years. So yeah, I'm really curious about the numbers next year, see how they have improved. But yeah, based on experience, I would say 19% will highly increase to a higher number next year.
Mm. Yeah. And I think so as well, because I guess everyone who works with any technology will realize that going from experimentation to production takes a little time. So if these companies experimented so much this year, next year is going to be production. But also we acknowledge that it's not very easy to do it. So I will now let you, Eva, show some of the statistics that you've gathered about, data projects, AI projects, and what's the success rate on them.
Yeah, thanks. Because I indeed fully agree with what has been said up until now. And so we've done also our research and noticed that different surveys show indeed that many organizations, many individuals agree that AI represents business opportunity for their company. We also noticed that many organizations have a bit of fear. They fear others might be first. They might beat them in their AI game. And that's mainly what we see, at least, that many companies struggle to actually gain benefit from AI initiatives. If you click to the next slide, Piotr, then you will see it's like 70% report minimal to no gains from their AI initiatives. So it sounds usually quite easy. Oh, let's invest in AI, let's invest in data, let's get a Gen AI solution. I always like to refer to it as the golden hammer syndrome, what's currently happening. And so generative AI is this nice, shiny golden hammer that you have. And because you have it, you tend to treat everything as if it were a nail. And so you really want to use that hammer and start going. But it's also good to keep in mind that just implementing a technology will not automatically give you the benefits that you're looking for. And I think that's why it's important to invest in a data strategy so that you are actually realizing the return on investment that you're making. And I think, and that's on the next slide, what I would like to do is just give a really brief introduction into the framework that we usually use within Xebia. This is also part of an AI maturity white paper that we have written. The link is in the bottom, but there will also be a QR code at the end, so you can just download it from our website. So I will briefly elaborate on it, and then I would like to dive into a few examples of data strategy projects that we have done for different customers. So what you see here are the two pillars that we usually use to decide where an organization is in their AI maturity. So on the X-axis, you see the business adoption, and on the Y-axis, you see the analytical capabilities. And ideally, we are all in the top right corner, of course, as an AI-driven organization, where everything is in balance. We have buy-in from the organization, there is funding, people are skilled, we have all the right tools and technologies. But usually what we see is that either one of those pillars is a bit lacking behind. So organizations are either heavily invested in getting all the new tools and technologies on board, or are really eager to do a full data savviness program within their organization, while we truly believe that this should be in balance to eventually be successful. I won't dive into all of them, but on the next slide, I briefly want to show what are the different pillars or the drivers that we usually assess to agree what is the current as-is state of an organization. Because once we have an as-is state and we know where we want to head to, we can really well advise organizations on how to get there. So when we look at the analytical maturity, as said, we see those two dimensions, and we see these 6 drivers that combined make a really good assessment of how an organization is doing. So it's looking at people and skills. Do you have the right people in-house? Do you have the right career paths for them? Is there a culture of sharing knowledge? But it's also looking at tools and technology, at data, and data management, data governance is really important here. But as said, we can only do this if there's also buy-in from the organization. And so having executive support, having the right funding, and having a really clear approach on how to do an implementation. Usually what we like to focus on is having a more self-service analytics approach to really democratize AI within the organization. But it's, of course, highly dependent on the type of organization and the culture you envision or have. So yeah, this is just the starting point. And what we usually do as the 3 steps that we take is that we define, and that's on the next slide, Piotr. We define the organizational goal, what is the key ambition within the organization looking at data and AI. Then we define the analytical priorities, which are usually use cases that we want to execute. What are the different business cases that are critical for the organization? And that all combines into a data strategy wherein we look at what are the fundamentals that we need to fix. And once that's there, how can we build it up to eventually work towards that organizational goal that we put on the horizon? So on the next slide, it's just brief. I hope you will guys get the slides afterwards as well. I think so. So how do we usually do this? We define the organizational goal by really going through the entire organization and defining the North Star. So what's the star that we're working towards to? What's the goal? What principles we're leading? And that's a really intensive exercise, but it's really good to just hear what people have to say. We cannot define our goal if we only focus on the top level within the organization. Usually when we interview with people on C-level or senior management, they have a really green vision or a really black vision, like it's the happy path or the unhappy path. But when you talk to people that are actually working with a platform or actually working on a day-to-day basis with the data, they usually have a more detailed insights in what's going on and how we can improve that. So it's really good to include many different people in defining that goal. That's usually also why we do the analytical priorities, really dive through the organization with the different departments, with the different people to really find those challenges and problems and see how we can translate them into AI or data solutions. And as said, that all combines into a data strategy.
Yeah, so that sounds pretty interesting, and I think that it's actually valuable that you shared all of this, learnings that you have from different projects, and you decide to put it into a product that you later on share with the community, so that everyone can learn a little bit more about how to be more data-driven, how to be more AI-driven. But it's always also interesting to hear about some examples, and I know that you have some real field examples that you can show to us of how you actually implement this framework in practice to come up with data strategy to some of your clients.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to highlight 2 different customers that we have done a full data strategy for. So this is the first one. It's Kramp, which is a agricultural distributor. So they are creating spare parts for the agricultural sector. And what we did together with them was define a 3-year data strategy, which included everything from doing a maturity assessment. So where are they now, to defining where they want to be. And then how to get there was by identifying different use cases that we can focus on. So it was quite a challenge. And that is mainly because this organization was split within a more data savvy tech part of their organization and a more traditional part of the organization. So it was quite challenging to make sure that both teams, which were also located in different areas in the Netherlands, were actually connected on one organizational data strategy. But I think we did quite a good job. So within 5 months, we did a full enterprise-wide strategy. We spoke to, I don't know how many, like 60 or 70 people. We had different workshops. We eventually identified 14 essential use cases. And once we did that, because that's just a starting point, of course, we don't want a strategy to just be a fancy slide deck that ends up somewhere on the shelf, but we actually want the organization to take action upon. So together with them, we also made sure that there was a brand new MLOps platform deployed, and that the first use case was able to be kicked off. So this was really an interesting use case or organization to work for. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's actually quite funny that you mentioned that, because that was one of the questions that I had to you, that quite often within an organization, you see some departments or some parts of this company that are the leaders. Maybe they are closer to the core business and they have their data processes refined much better than the other parts, like there's more supporting roles. So how do you handle such cases in your data strategy projects?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we try to do as much as possible is involving everyone within the organization. As said in a bit earlier today, people that actually work with data or a platform or within a certain process on a day-to-day basis, they usually have a different vision of what should be done and how it can be done. So what I think is really important here is to get a really good overview of everyone within the organization. And it's a hell of a process to speak to so many people, but it really pays off to include all the different layers within the organization so that you have a vision from C-level that perfectly aligns with organizational goals or a organizational strategy, but that we also have a data strategy that is adding value actually within the organization. So that is actually bringing value and solving the challenges that people are running into.
Yeah, because I agree, but probably it's much better to get this extra input and insight first, because if you don't do it right away, it will take some time and it will be a time-consuming process. But if you don't do it later on when implementing or showing data strategy, you will learn that some people do not agree, or maybe your assumptions were not correct from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And on the next slide, I have an example of a use case that we did, which started out really well, and the results were also really interesting. But actually taking it to production was a bit of a challenge. So what we did was once we had the MLOps platform there, once we had a data strategy defined, we kicked off with a first use case on their new platform. So they already had a current or an existing forecasting model, but that was mainly predicting forecasting purely on historical demand. So it was a one-size-fits-all model within the organization. And they were already questioning like, hey, is this actually accurate? Or are different articles that we have, should they require a different predictive model to optimize forecasting? So what we did with them, and we always say, I always prefer to work with a more phased approach. So we said, let's start with historical demands, also add some data points, like historical data points that are not related to demand. For example, click behavior or promotions or pricing, etc. And then slowly increasing the number of data points that are non-historical or non-related to the original model. They're still working on improving the model, but the first results already showed that forecast was improved by 4%, which, if we recalculate that to euros, is a cost saving of around 8 million euros on a yearly basis. So looking at this, I would say it's a no-brainer to bring this to production, but we still run into the fact that this specific use case is still running in a QA environment, simply because the business owner has not been involved from A to Z during the whole process. And this person was just a bit struggling with, okay, the data looks good, the results look fine, but I honestly don't know if I can just push this to production and feel 100% comfortable with, my name as a business owner being on top of this. So I think this is a really brilliant failure, which shows that it's really important to have the tech people involved, have the business involved, have the sponsors involved, and make sure that everyone is fully aligned, talks to each other, shares their thoughts, shares their vision. Because if you don't do it, then you have this really amazing use case, which is just catching dust on the shelf, which is a bit of a shame, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. And actually what you are describing also shows another aspect, because if you say that you will bring all of these people to the workshops, and I think you said before that this project lasted for 5 months, it seems like a huge investment. But if you compare it to the fact that just one use case can deliver like 8 million euros of savings, and there are multiple use cases that you've identified, then it really shows that it's investment that can pay off very well.
Exactly. And it's always hard, of course, especially during a data strategy process, to say what is actually the return on investment or what will it be. So what we always like to do is work with a bit of a range from, okay, this use case has a potential return on investment, but it's a range from a conservative result to a more progressive result. Because I don't have a glass ball, I cannot predict the future. But what we can do is, of course, make a really good estimation of what it will do. And I would always, I would encourage people to at least come up with a really solid business case wherein you have thought about what is it, what you want to do, why do you want to do it, how are you going to do it, and especially what will the impact of this use case be to the organization. Because if there's no value involved, it's really hard to sell it, and really hard to find the respective business owners or sponsors to actually invest in it and push it.
Yeah, and I think our audience agree, because we have a comment that even if you try to align everyone at all times, always someone will pop up who maybe were not in the loop. So stakeholder management is crucial in this case.
I couldn't agree more, and really well said. It's very difficult, but that's why it's important to indeed involve the business in a very early stage. Make sure that they really feel that ownership of a use case, and then just try to connect everyone. Maybe even on a daily or weekly basis to make sure everyone is aligned. Because otherwise, we have really cool AI or data use cases that are just not actually gaining value or bringing value to the organization in the end.
Yeah,
Perfect.
agree.
Yeah, so this was just one of the examples that I wanted to share. The other example or customer story that I want to elaborate on is, I really like this because this organization is really unique. This was a full data strategy for Enzazade. And Enzazade is a seed breeding organization. So the first time when I walked into the door, I was like, what does a seed breeding organization do? And it's pretty cool because what they do is they create seeds for tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants. You think of it and they create it. And they have been in business for I don't know how long. So they have seen all the different AI and data revolutions already. And when the bio industry popped up, they had to adapt to that new technology. And now they see with the rise of data and AI, they see another moment to really adapt to the new way of working before they are outdated or out of office again. So this was a really interesting one, and I was happy to be part of it. Because they have been outsourcing their data and AI platform to external vendors for the past years. And they were just curious, what is the status of this platform? Can it really help us grow to the next step or to the next level? So we initially started there by doing an AI maturity assessment on their data platform, which eventually resulted in doing a full data strategy, because we realized that their platform was needed a bit of tweaking. That was the initial assessment. And during that assessment, they said, you know what, we also think it's good to think more about where we want to take actions to become more data and AI driven. So we co-developed a data strategy, hired new people, improved the foundation of their platform, and eventually worked towards a full hub-spoke model, wherein all the data is collected into a central hub. It's managed there, it's governed there, but they have a good operating model wherein all the different spokes, so the different teams, can quite individually work with that data and build their own data and AI solutions. So it's centrally supported, But if you build something in one of the different spokes or one of the different teams, it's really easy. You build it, you run it, you maintain it. And of course, they can support it. But this was an interesting one because they have such a unique industry that they work in. So it was really nice doing a full data strategy for their organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also interesting because it shows how crucial the foundations are, because this Gen AI, for example, use cases are very shiny and very, encouraging to pursue them. But as you show here, maybe first, before you pursue these use cases, maybe you have other low-hanging fruits that if you, or maybe even not low-hanging, but maybe you need to do some work on the more foundational level to allow not only these new use cases, but also maybe revise some of the things that you are already doing.
Exactly. And I think that's a really good point because, as said, everyone is currently in the hype of generative AI, which I think is good because it makes AI more accessible, tangible, but also people are more aware of what we can and cannot do. But it also, I think, highlights the importance of having proper data management and data quality in place. Because with generative AI, if you put garbage into your model, if the prompt you're using for your model is of low quality, then the output is also of low quality. And I think that having the right foundation in this case was extremely important because DaIT's is working with really sensitive data in that sense that they assess the quality of their seeds using data. And if there's something wrong with the input data, then that might have really, can highly affect and be really expensive if the output is actually wrong. And they are selling seeds of low quality, or if they are throwing away seeds that were of high quality. So for this organization, having proper data management, having the right data quality is even more important than working with shiny tools like generative AI. And I hope the next example shows that as well.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, so this was quite nice. They once we had the platform in place, they said, how can we optimize our seed analysis processes using computer vision? So to just give a bit of context for this use case, DaIT's is producing seeds worldwide. So they have their HQ in the Netherlands, but they have different breeding locations where they actually grow their seeds. And after those seeds are being harvested, they are all shipped back to the Netherlands, to HQ, where they will be assessed, and the quality will be assessed before those seeds are again shipped worldwide to their final destination. And the challenge here is that every country that you ship seeds to or seeds from has different regulations regarding import. So some of them have really strict import rules, others less. So it's really important that all seeds that enter this process, this chain, have been assessed or evaluated. And that is a really time-consuming process. So usually when you have a seed lot, it takes about 60 to 180 minutes per seed lot, depending on the crop. So dependent on whether it's a tomato or a pepper seed. And this is a really labor-extensive process. And due to the fact that all these regulations become stricter and stricter every year, it's also a non-scalable solution because you just need more and more people to actually maintain this. And then I think this is so we were really happy with this use case because it screams AI and how we can automate this. So what we did was the following. We agreed upon a few important parameters together with the customer. These are shown on the next slide. And so on the top, you see, in this case, pepper seeds. So we used color, shape, and size to describe a pepper seed, put that into a system, and of course, also cross-referenced it with other seeds. So you could say, we trained the model to identify the specific seeds. We also trained the model on what was indeed dirt or weed or another seed. So eventually we built a proof of concept, tested the model with a 99.9% accuracy, but that's not it, because then you have a really cool AI model, but how to bring it into production and especially into a robust sorting system. So I'm always really happy when I see the video that is on the screen, because once Piotr will click on it, you will see that this is a machine that is, all the seeds are coming over the blue belts, and the system is running, or the model is running and is filtering out all the seeds that are not identified as pepper seeds. And this goes so fast, I think your eyes won't even be able to catch it. It makes a little noise, I think, but let's see. Here is this and it goes so fast, and I think that this is really showing that this was before done as a manual process, and now they are just throwing all the seeds over this belt, and the model that is running is just automatically picking out seeds that have been identified as of low quality or incorrect. So this shows that due to the fact that we did a full data strategy, we had their platform on point, we had their data management, data governance was there. This allowed this team within their hub-and-spoke model to actually build a model together with us, bring it to production, scale it, and now we see it actually running and benefiting the organization.
Yeah, that's this use case is probably quite similar to those that we discussed at the very start, that these big companies, IBM, Klarna, Spotify, they decided that they will not need to do extra hiring because some of the work will be automated. And it looks like this use case that you're showing falls exactly into this trend.
Exactly.
Actually, we got a question on that. The first companies we mentioned, if they are customers of GetInData, Xebia, and I'm not sure how much we can say. Actually, one of them is, I can say that much, in the modern data platform area and a bit of AI, but I think that as far as we can go. But the point was really that they have announced changes like you're describing. And I'm sure we will be engaged with companies like that to help them to navigate data strategy-wise and also implement solutions in this area. But yeah, so that was one question. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, so those were the two examples that I really wanted to highlight to also show that working with data and AI is, I highly encourage people to do so. I think it can really speed up processes, help automate, maybe even repetitive work. Allows you to see more, do more, but it's not as easy as you might assume. Because now with Gen AI, it looks like, oh, it's magic. But I just wanted to highlight that it's really important to keep in mind what's feasible within your organization, what is actually making impact within your organization, and whether it's suitable for your organization. And sometimes that means making a really almost between wickets boring decision to first invest in proper data management, data governance, a platform, and then you can do all the cool stuff with the different use cases that actually bring business value. But it's important to have that up to speed and up and running as well.
Yeah, and also this boring investment can also translate into the value, because we already seen that for our clients, one of the banks, for example, so they were also trying to improve their MLOps platform, and it seems like, again, that's a kind of investment in the infrastructure. But it turned out that because with the new platform, they were able to do much more iterations of the models within the same time. They increased the accuracy of their forecasting models quite a bit, which in a large bank translated into big savings. So these foundational investments can also translate into some actual value.
Agreed. So these were just two use cases to inspire you a bit. I think it's also good to let you guys know how you can get started if you haven't started yet or feel like you need a bit more inspiration. But Piotr, I think you can really well elaborate on where they should get started.
Yeah, exactly. Because data strategy is a broad topic, and we could probably spend the entire day today to talk about it. But for those of you who would like to learn more, you can visit the Xebia page, and there you will find the white paper, where you can read in much more depth about the points that we discussed today. I don't know, Eva, if you want to add something about this paper?
No, I think I highlighted a few of the components already today during this this talk. It indeed shows how you can properly democratize data or democratize AI within your organization. But as said, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So yeah, just go over it, go through it. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to help. But I think it's a good starting point to get a bit of an understanding of where you as an organization are standing within this AI maturity journey. Because if you know what your current as-is status is, it's also easier to decide where you want to go and how you should get there. So yeah, it's a good starting point. And we hope by sharing a bit of knowledge on this topic, we can help you guys as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are trying to make some steps in this direction, please take a look at this white paper. And like Eva said, if you feel that you have some questions that maybe are so specific to your company, and you would like to brainstorm them with some of the people who are doing data strategy projects on a daily basis, don't hesitate to reach out. We will be happy to talk to you and maybe help to guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, and for the Nordic ones, feel free to reach out to me as well, obviously. Actually, Eva, you gave me some food for thought for coming lunch dates as well. Data quality, governance, business ontology, semantic layers.
Yeah.
God gracious me.
Responsible AI, we can go even further. So many topics.
Tons of stuff to talk about. Yes, brilliant stuff. All right, I think we have come pretty much to the end. And Claudia usually have something to say here. Not now.
Yes, please. If you have 2 minutes, I'm just gonna leave a link to the feedback form. We will be happy to read your opinion about our webinar.
Yeah, and also some of the questions we have about your interests. So if you want to co-create this initiative in the future, you could add some ideas about the topics that are of special interest for you, so that in the future we can ask someone from our team to cover it. Like, I'm pretty sure we will find somebody for basically any data-related topic. Yeah, and that brings us to the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Yeah, let's see. We've had a few. I think we've covered one so far and commented on them, but it appears it was crystal clear and hopefully hugely inspiring. And again, if you are curious, please feel free to reach out, download the white paper, and we will take it from there. But if no questions, thanks very much for joining the webinar lunch date, and looking forward to see you on the next one, which, yeah, is it decided now? It's January 31st, right, Claudia?
Yes, that's true.
And it will be about crucial piece of every business strategy, that data streaming is becoming that. And I'm sure we will touch on data streaming AI, and tons of interesting and useful use cases and examples. But watch out for that. There will be an invite on LinkedIn and otherwise coming to a place close to you in the not too distant future. You will be most welcome to that. All right, anything you want to add, Claudia? Or...
No, I think we're good. Thank you all for joining us today, and see you on the next webinar. And Piotr, Eva, thank you for the presentation. It was really, really great.
And by the way, just one, if you have an idea of a theme you would like to see there, again, please reach out, give us some tips and ideas. All right, cool. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.